The Paris massacre of 1961 occurred on 17 October 1961. During the Algerian War, under orders from the head of the Parisian police, Maurice Papon, the French National Police attacked a demonstration by 30,000 pro-National Liberation Front Algerians. After 37 years of denial and censorship of the press, in 1998 the French government finally acknowledged 40 deaths, although there are estimates of 100 to 300 victims. Death was due to heavy-handed beating by the police, as well as mass drownings, as police officers threw demonstrators into the river Seine. The massacre was intentional, as substantiated by historian Jean-Luc Einaudi, who won a trial against Papon in 1999. Official documentation and eyewitness accounts within the Paris Police Department suggest that Papon directed the massacre himself. Police records show that he called for officers in one station to be subversive in quelling the demonstrations, and assured them protection from prosecution if they participated. 40 years after the massacre, on 17 October 2001, Bertrand Delanoë, the socialist mayor of Paris, put up a plaque in remembrance of the massacre on the Pont Saint-Michel. How many demonstrators were killed is still unclear. In the absence of official estimates, the plaque commemorating the massacre reads, "In memory of the many Algerians killed during the bloody repression of the peaceful demonstration of 17 October 1961. On 18 February 2007 calls were made for a Paris metro station under construction in Gennevilliers, to be named 17 Octobre 1961, in commemoration of the massacre." The massacre took place in the context of the Algerian War, which had become increasingly violent. After Charles de Gaulle's return to power during the May 1958 crisis and his sudden change of policy on Algerian independence, the OAS used all possible means to oppose the National Liberation Front, which took the war to the metropolis, where it was helped by activists such as the Johnson Network. The repression by French authorities, both in Algeria and in metropolitan France, was very harsh, according to historian Jean-Luc Einaudi, a specialist on the massacre. Some of the causes of the violent repression of the 17 October 1961 demonstration can best be understood in terms of the composition of the French police force itself, which still included many former members of the force in place during the Vichy regime that collaborated with the Gestapo to detain Jews, as for example in the Well-Div roundup of the 16th to the 17th of July 1942. The vast majority of police officers suspended after the liberation of Paris in 1944 for extreme forms of collaborationism were later reintegrated into the police forces. In contrast, some of the policemen who had been part of the French resistance had their career advancement blocked because of Cold War anti-communism, since the resistance was partially communist and communist ministers had been expelled from the government in May 1947. Moreover, police officers who had been members of the resistance might well have taken part in the various raids against Jews and other persecuted groups during the Vichy regime, as otherwise they would have been dismissed. Papon's career as head of Paris's police force in the 1960s and Minister of Finance under Valéry Giscard d'Estaing's presidency in the 1970s suggests that there was institutional racism in the French police until at least the 1960s. In fact, Papon was not charged and convicted until 1997-98 for his World War II crimes against humanity in being responsible for the deportation of 1,560 Jews, including children and the elderly, between 1942 and 1944. Before his appointment as chief of the Paris police, Papon had been, since 1956, prefect of the Constantine department in Algeria, where he actively participated in the repression of and use of torture against the civilian population. On 13 March 1958, 7,000 policemen demonstrated in the courtyard of the police headquarters against delays in the risque prime accorded to them because of the war, although the FLN had not yet begun to target police officers. Encouraged by far-right deputy Jean-Marie Le Pen, 2,000 of them attempted to enter the Palais Bourbon, seat of the National Assembly, with shouts of sales gifs. À la scène. Mort aux Felaghes, rebels. With Minister of Interior Maurice Borges Mouneri's recommendation, Papon was named prefect the next day. 2 years earlier, in Constantine, Algeria, he had assumed the role of Inspector General pour l'administration en mission extraordinaire. Prohibited zones, detention centers, torture, executions without trial. This is the reality of the war he was supervising out there. According to Rinaldi, in the following years he applied these methods in Paris and the Seine department. After the May 1958 crisis and the installation of the French Fifth Republic under Free France leader Charles de Gaulle's leadership, Papon was kept on. He created the compagnies de district, police for